What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the No Starving Artist podcast. Super pumped for this episode, super pumped for this whole season. So if you haven't already, be sure to go back and watch the episodes before and stay tuned for the episodes after as well. www.nsadance.com. You can find out everything about No Starving Artists. But today we have a fantastic guest, somebody that I found on social media, as I'm sure a lot of you have as well. I really liked their content and what they had to say in the classroom. So it's a pleasure to have Clara Eaton Ribeiro on the podcast today. Clara, go ahead and give people a little bit of background on yourself. Hopefully I got that right. We were practicing her last name, and I wanted to give it a real try.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. So yes, my name is Clara. I'm super excited to be here, and I am based in Toronto, Canada. So repping the Canadians out here. And I'm super excited because I just kind of started my kind of journey on social media, and it kind of just blew up outside of what I thought it would. It's funny because I actually started posting more teaching content on my social media almost on accident. My husband is a videographer, so he was actually filming a dance convention, and he popped into one of my classes, and I'm really big on like giving motivational chats and like really inspiring. Well, I tried to, and I feel like he kind of caught the tail end of one of my little spiels to the class, and he edited it together without me knowing because I didn't even know he was filming me. And then boom, he's like, you need to post this now. And I was like, what? No one's like, I don't even make sense. Like, I don't even know if anyone's going to relate to that. And he was like, no, just do it. And then out of nowhere, it kind of just blew up. And then here I am now. So I'm teaching even more. I'm in more conventions. Now I'm adjudicating more. And I'm just kind of starting my social media journey kind of on accident, like I said. So I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm so grateful we could make that connection because, yeah, it's just brought me a community that I feel so grateful to have, because I was always kind of feeling a little bit alone in maybe how I thought about the dance industry, and finding an online community that was like, no, I agree with you too. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool. I love that. So here I am now, and I'm glad that it brought us together.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, those were the videos that I saw, and a lot of times I come across people through like sharing, but yours was actually, I saw a video on my For You page, and the reason I went to it is because your content is exactly like content that I have always wanted to make, and content that I, aspire to make. Because people don't do it. People don't do it. As a young dancer, like I wanted the back end so much. Like I wanted choreographer interviews, and I wanted like, what does it look like to create your pieces? And like the nerd side of me wanted that, and I was never able to have that. So now I'm really drawn to people who kind of, pull back the curtain a little bit on their process and their application. And yeah, I just really liked the way it was presented. And so yeah, it's great. It's amazing. So I'm glad that we can have this chat. Are you from Canada originally?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
grew up in a smaller city in Brantford, so it's about like 2 hours from Toronto. And then my journey innately just kind of moved to Toronto because
Yeah.
that's where the scene is a little bit bigger. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, that's kind of where I ended up.
It seems like there's a lot of dance there.
Yeah, there is. I mean, that's the place to be
Yeah.
if you're in Canada. I get Toronto or Vancouver, I guess. So, yeah, I'm just outside of Toronto.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Mhm.
So you have a workshop, and I kind of want to start there because
Mhm.
I'm always curious when people have like um things, like big things that they endeavor to do, because I am terrified of those types of things. And and I am just a very not planning type of person. I don't like to organize much of anything. And so it always intrigues me. So I'm curious, how did you get into, like, what made you decide, like, I want to have a workshop slash, I guess convention. You guys do multiple stops. So we're going to roll convention. What kind of drew you to that? Was there a point where you were like, this is something I want to do? I know you have a partner in that as well. So I'm
Mhm.
just kind of curious on like the before Vertex, what was it?
Yeah, I think kind of what drew me to it was I just started teaching more downtown Toronto. I started doing classes, like drop-in classes, and I was just teaching how I teach and what I always wanted in class, as I think we all do as instructors. And I got a lot of feedback from my dancers saying, like, oh, this is such a different experience. And to me, I'm like, what do you mean different experience? This is just the way that I do it and the way that I
Yeah.
like to. And I think what I learned from that was people really appreciated the energy that I kind of create in this space. Like
Mm,
when I teach and when I want to take class, I love doing it for the love of it. And I think
mhm,
sometimes that gets really lost. It sounds so simple, but I honestly sometimes think it gets so lost because you're so busy thinking about, oh, I need to be better. Oh, I need the technique. Oh, I need this. Oh, I need that. I'm
mm,
comparing myself to others. There's like 8,000 things running through our head in a
mhm,
class. And I was like, no, I want to create a space where like it's all about having a therapeutic space where, because I mainly focus on contemporary dance in my practice, I just really wanted that space where it's to let it out and let out the stuff in the outside world. And this is the space to feel safe and do that. And I really drive that message as
mm,
I teach. And I think that a lot of people had feedback of like, oh, wow, I've never been able to feel like that in a space in such a short amount of time. And it kind of just like got in the back of my head of like, okay, so this is something that's different. And this is something that keeps bringing people back. So maybe that's something special that I want to keep with me. So time went on and I wasn't really thinking about a convention of any sort. And then I continued my career. I was actually working on cruise ships for like 5 years, performing. So when I was there, there's a lot of time to think. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no outside distractions. It's really just you, your performance, and then so many hours in the day.
mhm.
And I just was teaching a little bit on ships as well because we do classes with each other. And I kept getting the same feedback. So I was like, you know what? In my spare time, like let's just brainstorm on how I can make this bigger and how I can create something for myself
Yeah.
because I saw that vision and I was like, you know what, let's try. So in my spare time, I was just kind of like writing little business ideas and plans and brainstorming and getting the logo and putting the branding together and all that hard like behind the scenes work
Yeah.
that I think you talk about that's like very overwhelming because
Mhm.
it's a lot of different pieces. I kind of used that time, all of the time that I had to put it down on paper and work out the logistics of it.
Right.
But it was hard because I couldn't actually act on it because I was overseas, like in my own
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bubble. And I just had this dream of like, oh, I want to do it. So then COVID happened and everything happened, and I was still on ships, stuck, and I still continued to work on this idea. So at this point, it was just like a dream that I kept working on paper,
Mhm.
but I could never actually do. So then finally, like last year, it was my first time back, not working on ships and
Yeah.
starting to get back into the teaching scene. And I was like, you know what? Like I need to start this. I just need to go for it and see how it goes, and start super small. I think a lot of the time in our heads we think like, oh, we need to go and do it big and compete with all these big conventions, and that's the part that was kind of overwhelming to me. So I kind of had to just like humble myself and be like, you know what, if nobody shows up, like it's okay. If
Yeah, nobody
one
would even know.
person, yeah, if one person shows up, amazing, but I'm gonna put the work that I did to market it, to build the brand and make it look like it's a huge convention of 1,000 people,
Yeah.
and fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had a really lovely friend who owned a studio, and she was like, you know what, you can use my dancers. We can just kind of do like a free promotional class. So
Okay.
I started with a free class to get footage, because I think a lot of the industry today, sadly, but also great, is on social media and is
Yeah.
showing the video content and showing what the experience is like. So you kind of build that credibility and trust before you're actually in the space doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you're starting from zero, it's like, how do I do that? So that's kind of where I was like, you know what, we'll do a free one. We'll get the content. I'm lucky that my husband's a videographer.
Yes.
So he can like make the content fabulous. And yeah, so we kind of did that and just started pushing it out, like as
Yeah.
if it was like a huge convention already.
Yeah.
So then we put that out. It went really well, because she had the studio and she had the students. And we're
Hmm.
like, you know what? Let's just do one in the summer. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
And to be honest, like it did do really, really well. And because the nature of our event, if nobody knows, it's a little bit more, when we say convention, sometimes I think of like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids packed in a room.
Right.
Whereas Vertex was something that I wanted to make differently.
Hmm.
So I really thought, I want to make this an experience that's intimate, where I can get to know every single dancer, which I feel like is hard when you're
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
conventions. Like I feel like I blank out and then I just teach the class and I'm like, it's already done, the hour.
For sure.
So I was like, no, I want longer classes. I want one-on-one like connection. I want to facilitate connection with the dancers, give them an opportunity to meet people, to talk to people.
Yeah.
I want that experience of like loving dance and reminding us why we love dance. And that's kind of why I thought, okay, I want to do Vertex,
Hmm.
because it's different. I want to remind dancers why we do this for more reasons than competition or getting better or improving. I want to remind them how important it is to make connections and make friends and
Right.
have
Right.
that environment, because those are the things that I really loved, and I wish I had when I was
Yeah.
younger. So that's kind of why Vertex came to be, and that's kind of where I was at. So then I ran that summer workshop last year, and it was still super intimate and small.
Hmm.
We capped it at 30. But when I say like we faked it till we made it, we
Yeah.
did. Like we
Yeah. I
made
would
it
have.
seem
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
selling out and everything, but in reality, like we were working to get
Yeah.
those 30.
Yeah. It's so
um,
smart though.
yeah, so then we got a 30. We did more content. We ended up getting testimonials from the dancers
Hmm.
on their experience. And it was cool because we actually did like a little intro ourselves of like, this is what we aspire and this is what we want for the day. And
Yeah.
then when people were doing their interviews, it was so fascinating to hear like they said exactly what we wanted. So
Right.
I was
Right.
like, okay, it's working. Something's working. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's coming. So it was exciting. So that's how we started. And then, yeah, thanks to the beauty of social media and how it can connect us with so many different people and
Yeah.
places, I, on my own, just started teaching more and more conventions around Canada.
Hmm.
And then those people were like, oh, I would love to host a Vertex Vibe at our studio and invite
Gotcha.
people in our area
Yep.
to join, because there are so many places in Canada that I think are not necessarily neglected, but there's not a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so they really were like, oh, we see this and we want this. And I think what makes us different is that we are smaller and we are more based around the love of what we do. And not to say that others are not based on that, I think, but that's our sole purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of what made us different, and people see that. And I think people relate to that element of my content. I talk a lot about confidence. I talk a lot
Hmm.
about like finding your authenticity and like really going with that.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that attracted people, and that's something that we do at Vertex Vibe, and that's something that I'm super proud of. So
I love that. I love that. Sign me up.
that's where I'm at.
Sign me up. No, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, the content is so good. It struck me. I mean, exactly what your goal was. I think it was 100% accomplished. I mean, it feels legit for sure. And yeah, so kudos to your husband. His video content is great.
Thank you.
I started, well, I didn't start, but I've always done videography alongside my dance, but it doesn't really help me that much when I'm the one teaching.
Exactly. And what's funny is he's actually a hip hop and break dancer himself.
Okay,
So
okay.
he
That's
started the
amazing.
same way you did. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
now he still teaches and stuff, but we have a production company now that's his. So now
That's
he's
amazing.
more focused on the video aspect of it. But now I have him. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah,
nice. And he kind of
yeah.
has me because I can kind of work the camera as well. But of course, he has the vision and
Yeah,
so it's nice to have that. I'm grateful. It's definitely
yeah.
helpful for the career because as I said, like it's all on video
Yeah,
nowadays.
for sure. For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, and I mean it reaches people too, and I think it resonates. And I
Mhm.
think like for me, it's like the authenticity of the way that you speak is very clear, and I can see that passion in the footage. It feels like a fly on the wall, which is a cool experience because um, sometimes it's not always like that, right?
And
Um,
that's like really what I wanted too,
right,
because and
right.
now I don't even have him come with me. All of my content I film and edit myself. I obviously use his equipment, so
Yeah,
it's easier
yeah,
for me. But I exactly what you said. That's what I was striving for because I don't want it to feel like it's about me or it's
yeah,
about the video. Because I want to create that safe space. So I really just like that's why some of my footage is really zoomed because I'll
yeah.
stick it in the corner of a convention
Is
class.
it just like a tripod?
I put tripod, a
Interesting.
camera,
Okay.
and then I will put it on 4K and I'll record the whole hour with a mic on me.
Yeah.
And I'll be running around the convention space, like all the way to the back, all the way to the side, like fully invested into the class. Like I want
Yeah.
to make sure that they know that I'm present. And then
Yeah.
I'll zoom all the way to the back corner, which is why some of the footage is a little weird. But I would rather sacrifice that than
Yeah.
sacrifice the energy of the class. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really,
it's that's a hard thing for sure because like I have somebody that I work with that records my classes, and it really is, it hasn't been like a bad experience at all, but there's part of me that's like, man, I wish I could eliminate, not him, he's great, but I wish I could just not have to do this. But I usually just preface and tell the kids like I introduce him and then just tell them to ignore him.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it works out, but yeah, I can feel that sentiment for sure.
Yeah, and I can tell in your videos, like it seems like it's so natural and it's so great. So I feel like whatever he's doing and whatever you're doing, it's great because, yeah, when the kids feel more relaxed and they feel more into it, then we feel that as the viewer too. You're right;
Yeah.
we can like feel the authenticity of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure. I want to make a little tiny bit of a pivot here because I'm been having these conversations, and I've been trying to get everybody's opinion on it. So you have
Mhm.
a BFA.
Yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on college at this point for dancers? Is it
Mhm.
something, I know you do mentorship with dancers. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I would assume you interact with dancers often. Is it something you recommend to them? Is it something that you think is valuable? How was your experience going through that process?
Mhm. So I'm going to start with my experience first. So I decided to go to school for dancing because I was like, you know what? I originally was going to go for business.
Mm.
I think that's the very common dancer choice. I
Hey,
don't know. I don't want to
take it
speak for
easy on business
I
majors,
don't want
okay?
I don't want to speak for everyone, but for me, I was like, I still want to dance, but maybe like it's
Yeah,
totally valid. Like, I want, as a dancer, you need to know about running a business because you are
yeah,
the
yeah,
business.
yeah.
So I feel like the business courses that I did take in university alongside dance was super helpful for me. So
Right.
not knocking that at all. But I
No
do
offense
feel
taken.
like, no, but I do feel like that is a common choice because we do know that we are entrepreneurs at the end of the day.
For
We're
sure.
marketing ourselves. We're the communication. We're
Hmm.
all the things. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's kind of why I was deciding to make that choice. Now, I ended up getting injured very badly, tore a few ligaments in my ankle.
Oh
Okay.
wow. In
And
college.
No, before.
Okay.
When I
Okay.
was trying to make my decision.
Got it.
And I was like, you know what? I had to stop dancing. I could barely even walk on it for quite a while. And I was like, you know what? Like, I cannot stop this. Like, if
Yeah.
I can't even stop dancing for 3 months, what am I going to do when I'm in university? And I'm also a very all or nothing kind of person. Like, I don't want to kind of dance and kind of do school and kind of do that. I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? If I need to do something, I need to go full into it to see the experience. And if it doesn't work, I can always pivot and change. So I already got accepted to all these universities for business. Okay. And now I hurt myself and I'm like, you know what? Now what? I got to change. So I called up the university and I was like, can I switch to a dance major?
Yeah.
And they said, well, you have to decline this one and you have to reapply and go to the audition and see how it goes. So long story short, went there and it all went well. I got accepted and I was like, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that was kind of my sign of like, okay, this is what you need to do. So I kind of fell into the dance BFA
Yeah. Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
because I knew that I wanted to go to school for something, but I just didn't know what.
Gotcha.
So I fell into that space. And now that I say that, like maybe now knowing all the information that's out there, maybe I wouldn't have gone to school or felt like I needed to, because
Hmm.
I think it, especially when I was growing up, it was kind of like you go to university
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I think now it's a little more free. People are starting to explore different options. But yeah, so I ended up going there. My experience was great. Um, it's very tough. I don't know what the schools in the US are like, but the school that I went to here was extremely tough. Like they would not necessarily keep all of the dancers that they start
Hmm.
with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're trying to see if you really want it and see if
Gotcha.
this is something that you want to make a career out of, because once you leave, their whole idea was like you're going to get a lot of no's and you're going to get faced with a lot of hard decisions and hard comments, and
Yeah.
you need, if you can't make it through this experience, then maybe it's not the path for you, which is a little bit harsh.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, but it was a very well known school, and I was like, you know what, like I want to just finish it out. So, um, once I finished, you know what, I found that it kind of changed my perception of dance and what I wanted,
Hmm.
in good ways and bad. I think the good things that I took out of the experience was I really started to realize what I want and what my vibe is as a dancer. Um, and it kind of taught me as well what I don't really love.
Right. Right.
Because they were really trying to create like concert dancers.
Gotcha.
And as
Yeah.
much as I love contemporary like concert dance, I think it's very beautiful and I enjoyed it. Um, it wasn't really me. Like they always kind of told me like, oh, you're a very competitive competition dancer.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey,
Which
what?
is like the most, if you've never received that comment before, it's like the most backhanded, like
Yeah.
weird comment to receive, because I get that as well. And I never know how to take it. And it infuriates me every single time.
I'm like, what does that even mean? Like,
Right.
competition dancers
Yeah.
can still have beautiful technique, and artistry, I think, is where they kind
Right.
of dig at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the simplicity of movement itself rather than the tricks. That's kind of what they taught us. And it almost was like when I graduated, I was like, I don't know what I want to do with this.
Hmm.
Um, because what I kind of want was almost told to me that not necessarily that it was an invalid career, but like I don't know, it's not the career that prestigious dancers go for, in the
Right.
sense
Okay.
of
Okay.
concert dance is the way to go and
Yeah.
commercial isn't.
Yeah.
Now it depends on your program. Probably, I'm sure there are commercial dance programs that really want you to do that stuff.
Yeah.
But from
Yeah.
my personal experience, I was confused. Like I almost felt like I was like, am I doing what they want me to do, or am I choosing my choice?
Right.
But one thing that I did love about university was I loved that I learned about how to communicate with people. I loved that I learned what burnout looks like. I learned a lot about myself that I don't think I could have learned if I didn't go through that experience.
Right, right.
Um, so that was great. But yeah, so coming out of school, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And I went to a random audition because everyone in my class was going.
Yeah.
And I just went for fun. It was for a cruise ship. And I
Got
was
it.
like, you know
Okay.
what? I thought this cruise ship dancing, I don't know what your thoughts about this are, but I thought it was like step, touch, chasse, ball change, like jazz hands, and that's it.
That's pretty legit.
Um,
It's pretty legit.
but now, wow, now
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
to bite my tongue because until I experienced it, wow, it is
Yeah.
next level. Like it's next level shows. Like they're trying to watch Cirque du Soleil, all of
Yeah.
these different
Yeah.
shows, and they're trying to make it better and on a
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I know some great dancers that have gone that route.
Crazy. So I
Yeah.
ended up doing contracts where I was like in aqua theaters and I'm like learning how to scuba dive and I'm learning like all this stuff, like entering and exiting from the water,
Uh,
like what's going on? Like how
yeah.
is that even possible?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um so it kind of I was so glad that I accidentally kind of got casted it because I just went to have fun with my friends
Yeah.
and I was grateful enough to get a job right out of school. So I got
Right.
my
Right.
contract, I finished, and then contract started a month after. And I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
did that for so long. So I kind of look at the university journey of like, yes, it taught me what I did like, what
Hmm.
maybe didn't resonate with me so much. And it taught me about myself. So
Yeah.
that's why I would recommend that path. But I also think as a dancer, it's not really necessary. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion or not. But as a dancer with a BFA, no one asked me for that. I've
For
never had
sure.
one person say like, "Oh, what are your credentials? Like, do you
For
have a
sure.
degree?"
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
So,
think it's unpopular. I think it's like, I think I'm very much in the same boat. I don't really see the value in the actual degree, but I see the value in the process and like the maturing that can happen throughout college. Um, but yeah, I would agree. The degree is just there.
it's just there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think it's literally what you make out of every opportunity as a
Right.
dancer. So if you don't want to take that path, like, don't do it. But if you're a person that really loves school and loves education and wants to continue in that path, like, it's also a great option if you want to continue dancing and go
Yeah.
full force at it. So I always look and talk to dancers, and if they have this question, I kind of help them figure out what they want and what's important to them.
Right.
And then if school's important to them and it's important to their family and it's important to so many different aspects of their life, then go for it. I think it's an amazing experience. And if
Yeah.
that's not something that's important to them, it's not necessary, but I also think they need to supplement that with something else,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like whether that's like other programs, whether that's like, I know there are a lot of mentorship programs now in many different ways.
Yeah.
So it's just like being hungry for it, I think, is what I encourage, and learning those lessons and being open to learning those lessons in their own life, in their own way, if
Yeah.
they don't choose that path.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about your experience with the cruise ships. It sounds like it was a relatively positive one. And I've heard very similar stories. I've never really heard too many bad things about them in terms of like people's experience with them. And it's something that I oftentimes will point dancers at least to look into, because
Mhm.
there really is not a lot of other jobs where the barrier of entry, dance wise, where the barrier of entry is not super high,
Mhm.
and you can, I mean, you can get paid to go do what you want to do and you get to travel. So to me, I'm kind of like, especially if you're a younger dancer and you don't have a lot of obligations life,
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a no-brainer to me to at least try it. But what was your, I mean, obviously I would hope it was good if you stuck with it for so long.
Yeah.
But what was kind of your overall experience with it?
So, as I said, I kind of went into the experience like, "Ooh, is this really for me?
Yeah.
Is this what I want?" And I think I kind of came to the decision of exactly what you're saying. Like, I'm traveling, I'm getting paid to do what I want, and
Right.
I don't have any commitments because I graduated, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, what better thing to do? I think it's also great for dancers who maybe are deciding if they want to go to school,
Yeah.
and they need
Yeah.
a little gap to figure it out. I always suggest like go on a cruise ship and do it because you can maintain your dance technique, you can learn new skills, and then you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're not paying, you don't have expenses,
Right.
and then
Right.
you go and then you can go to university, and you will have money to pay your university off or college or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a very smart decision, and I kind of went into the experience saying like, you know what, I just got to try it. I think that's something that I learned in the dance industry was maybe you don't necessarily envision yourself doing this, but if the opportunity is granted, you just have to go for it and try it
Right.
with open arms and an open mindset and like give it your all,
Yeah.
to see if it's actually a fit for you. Because clearly, like I got casted for a reason, and I was like, I gotta go and try it and see. So after I kind of went into that first contract thinking, okay, is this something that I would want to continue or not?
Yeah.
And I, when I started experiencing it, I was like, wow, this is not the step ball change that I thought it once was. Like, I'm like definitely getting proved wrong. And all of the venues that I've worked in, like, as I said, they're just trying to make them bigger and better. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
ended up learning a lot of aerial work. I was an aerialist in a
Hmm.
lot of my contracts. And that's a skill that I really fell in love with.
Mm.
And I never, especially as a dancer, would have gotten that experience without the cruise ship opportunity because they take dancers and they will teach you how
Yeah.
to do aerial work, which takes a lot of time and effort and investment financially. And there's not like, if you start on land, you're not just going to be cast in an aerial show as a dancer. You got to work for years and years and years. But because you're on ships and they want
Yeah.
to teach you these things, like I was like, wow, I'm getting the opportunity not only to do this, but to get paid to do this
Hmm.
and learn these new skills, which was amazing. And I think that's one misunderstanding too that people have about cruise ships is you become complacent because it's kind of the same show over and over again. But I think if you go into it with the mindset of like, no, I'm here to learn, I'm here to like get new skills, there are opportunities there.
Yeah.
Like the aerialist role. Like I would have never gotten to do all of that stuff if I didn't want to be challenged.
Right.
And I
Right.
told the company that when I went in, like I want to be challenged. I want to grow. I want to get a lot out of this experience. And I think I enjoyed it because of that. Like I wasn't afraid of being vocal about what I wanted out of the experience
Yeah.
and working hard to get those roles and have those opportunities. And also being open to the styles that they offered me. Like the first show that they offered me was more hip hop based show.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would not call myself a hip hop dancer, but I could learn.
There you
I
go.
can do it. I can adapt and I can try. So like it was just like so amazing to me. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then
Yeah.
there's contemporary shows. There's more ballroom shows. Like I love to say and like tell people that cruise ships, there's a space for everyone,
Mm.
like any style, any like experience level, because you know what? Like they will like help you grow through the process.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I met my husband on the ship, and
Oh,
as I
okay.
said, like he's a break dancer. Like
Yeah.
I'm like a contemporary dancer. Like we met in the same show, so it just kind of
Got it.
shows that
Okay.
like how many different styles and the different elements that are in each show. Um, and yeah, how much you can learn from that. So
Yeah.
I, yeah, loved the experience. I always recommend it to everybody because depending on the contract you get a different experience every single time with
Yeah.
every different show, with every different skill. Like, as I said, scuba diving, learning how to
That's crazy.
swim and dance. And it's hard. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're, imagine like you're going full out and you're doing like this whole like house section, and then all of a sudden you have to jump back into the water and hold your breath and stay under. Like,
Yeah.
that's no joke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I also really loved that it was physical.
Mm.
Like, I love to be challenged physically when I'm dancing, and I found that it was a great place to do that because
Yeah.
you're pushed to your limits in so many different ways. And I was like, you know what? I'm never going to have the opportunity to travel, to be pushed this physically,
Yeah.
to make a consistent income. Um, and because I kind of started from with no commitments, I think it was a great place to be. And that's why now I'm always like, no, you have to take the chance. You have to try it for yourself, because
Yeah.
if you were like me and you thought that it was not your path, and I did say those words in probably my first year of university that I do not want to dance on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
And then I made a career out of it, and it changed my life. Like, I met my husband. It just totally, completely changed my life. And
Yeah.
I think it just goes to show that as a dancer, you just have to be open. You just have to adapt and be hungry for learning new styles, to be challenged. And then what comes out of it is going to be magical.
Yeah. 100%. Well, plus it gave you the opportunity to think about Vertex as well and kind of visualize that, which is
And
now
that's,
what you're doing
yeah,
now.
yeah, what I
Yeah.
love, because you have, that's another thing about cruise ships that's not really talked about, I don't think, in the dance industry, is like, you need to use that as an opportunity to grow in every other aspect of your life. Like,
Interesting. Yeah.
I grew Vertex there. We grew my husband's production company, built
Yeah.
it from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like, you have time. You have all, when you're a dancer, you perform at night. So every other hour is yours.
Right.
And
Right.
you can make what you want out of it. And I think there's a more like lifestyle, like, oh, you just go and you travel and you have fun,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
which there is. But I think it's also great to mention that if you do take an opportunity like that, like, use it to your advantage, because there's never a moment in your life where you don't have anything to do other than dance.
Yeah,
Like,
for
you
sure.
don't have to make the rent, you don't
Yeah.
have,
Yeah. Yeah.
you just have
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time my husband and I are talking, we're like, oh, what we would give for that free time then to build more of our businesses and things.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
that, it's learning financial literacy. Like, we learned so much about financial on the ship, because we
Mm.
would just binge watch videos of how to build savings, how to do that, because we
Yeah.
wanted to take that transition of working on a cruise ship to living on land, from two
Right. Right.
people, two adults, starting from zero,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
my husband as a new resident. So it was just such a wild thing. And I think having the opportunity on ships to, yes, take the time to learn and grow whatever your dream passion project is, but number two, like, using that as an opportunity to save.
Yeah.
Like, yes,
Yeah.
you want to travel. Yes, I've done crazy things and probably spent way too much money, like skydiving and doing things like that, because you need those experience.
Yeah.
But I we are so grateful for the fact that we could save every single penny, to the point where when we made that transition, we could dance and work because we want to. And I
Right.
think
Right.
that's the power of the cruise ship, is like, yes, you do that, but you have a financial power that nobody speaks about. Because I
Yeah.
think I had the idea of people get on cruise ships and they get stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard a lot of
For
that. Like,
sure.
it's
For
just
sure.
kind of like
Yep.
oh, I need to go back. I need to go back. I need to
Yep.
go back. And I think a part of that stems from the fear of, okay, now I need to start from zero. And now I need to
Right. Right.
build a business and build a
Yeah.
name. And that's something that I feared leaving too after school, was, now I'm going to have to rebuild my name. No one's going to know who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, And I think it's accepting that and knowing that you're going to get a good experience out of either. Um, and then, yeah, once I was off the ship, I think that's kind of why I spent that last contract, like calculating every single penny, trying to make sure that this was a smart decision for me and that it was something that could propel me forward
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
give me that freedom as a dancer to choose the things that fuel me, the things that I'm passionate about.
Right.
And that's also why I encourage people to do cruise ships, because it's not just about the money, but that money can be a tool for you to keep transitioning onto land and doing what you love to do.
Right. Right.
Because
Right.
yeah, like there's like that fine line of like, yes, we want to dance and teach, but if we're doing it solely for the money, it becomes, I don't know, for me at least, I'm like, it's a struggle there.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, yeah. I did. I taught just exclusively for a while, several years, and it was great. I definitely would not change it going back, but it was not the most pleasant experience at the end of the day, just because, yeah, it becomes a job and it becomes. I think the value that you're speaking to particularly is you have a lot of power as an artist when you're able to say no to things because you know that you have prepared yourself
Mm-hmm.
financially, whereas if you're not in that position, then you feel like you have to say yes to everything, and that's a terrible feeling as an artist because you're constantly compromising your artistry.
Mm-hmm. And I almost feel like it's a little bit draining as an artist as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's creative. We need to be on our game, and we need to be fresh. And if you constantly are doing it for the job, then yeah, it's draining.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. It's funny that we kind of meandered into this because this was actually going to be my next little pivot because um yeah, I think a lot of dancers misunderstand. I think a lot of people in general, but you know, this is a dance podcast. Kind of just misunderstand that you have to live in life, like you have bills that you're gonna have to pay, and you have things that you have to do. Um, so, what were kind of like, or what are? I mean, what are some struggle points or some things that you've had to overcome or things that you're maybe still like combating when it comes to like being an artist, having a small business, where you and your husband kind of, you have a production company, you have your your convention. What's that like, and what are some of the struggles that you've faced up to this point, and what are some hurdles that you're now kind of overcoming?
Yeah, it is tough. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to make it sound glamorous or easy. It might
No,
look that
please. Yeah,
way.
please don't. Yeah. I mean,
It might look that way from the outside. I think social media is an amazing tool, but it also makes us kind of see the most amazing, glamorous things of
a
what we're
hundred
doing.
percent. Yeah, we're always busy. We're always booked.
And all I can say is like I'm super grateful for where I am right now. Like, it
Yeah.
exploded more than I thought. Like, I have only been here on land. It sounds funny to say, but for 1 year.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a lot, and it's a lot
Yeah.
as an adult to
Yeah.
figure out.
Yeah.
Because like I always think about this, like if I was 17 and I was like growing up normally, like here, present in Toronto, I would like have a chance to get my car, and I would have a chance to get my place, and I would have a chance to get this
Right.
and that, and whatever. But because of my lifestyle that I chose, it was like you're gonna figure it out in 1 month, all at the same time, and you got to make a choice, and you have to prove that you have income as a dancer. For both my husband and I, it's a struggle. It's a
Yeah.
struggle.
Yeah.
People don't understand that that's a career a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And maybe it's looked like as, oh, like you dance, that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You're a dance
Yep.
teacher, that's fun. I'm like, yes, it is fun, but it is very hard because, as I said earlier, like, we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Whether you
Yeah.
want to think it or not, whether you have a business that you call your own, like, as individuals, if you are a teacher trying to make your way through the industry, or dancer make your way through the industry, like, you are an entrepreneur and you have to step into that in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form. So I
100%.
think when you think of it in that sense of like, okay, we're entrepreneurs, when one thinks of an entrepreneur, a business entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, whatever, in whatever field,
Mm-hmm.
you think entrepreneur like you're working all day, every day, you don't stop, you're constantly thinking about new ideas, new ways to promote new. So the best way that I can explain the experience or the struggle is really finding out how to be, number one, present in the moment and making sure that you're enjoying the journey.
Mm.
Because I think I am so, I want to be here. I want to do this. I have big goals for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we all do as dancers. Like, we are always wanting more and we're always wanting to grow, I think is a great way to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with that comes a hard time being present. And that's a struggle that I face and I'm still facing, is
For sure.
being present, but still trying to grow myself, my brand, my name,
Yep.
my workshop,
Yep.
every single
Yep.
thing,
Yep.
right? So that's number one, being present. Number two, a struggle that I find is, just like finding enough hours in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's really tough to give yourself breaks and
Yeah.
to, yeah, say no to things. Like, I'm still struggling with that, because I've been talking with a lot of people about this. But when you're an adult and you're trying to prove like income and prove that this is your profession and your career,
Mm-hmm.
people look at it, and if you don't work for a studio
Yeah.
per se, it's like, well, how do we prove anything? Like, how do we prove that this is a successful business? How do we prove this, that, and another thing? So
Right. Right.
it's hard to not want to stay in that safe zone of like having that studio that you always teach at. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, some people are like, this is my calling and this
Yeah.
is what I want to do. And like, I
Yeah.
respect that and I love that. Um, but for me personally, I was like, you know what? Like, I do want to do that, but I want to do my own thing and I
Yeah.
want to share my message. And that's something that I'm struggling with currently is, okay, like, I am working for people and they do have opposing opinions to me.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am struggling to find like a happy medium of, yes, making the client happy, their client happy, the dancers happy, kind of molding into what they offer
Yeah.
and what they need from me as a teacher and an instructor, because they hired me and I agreed to that and I want to respect that.
Yeah.
But also of feeling like I'm alone in the way that I teach and in the way that I like express myself to
For sure.
dancers.
For sure.
And I think kind of what I've just been like trying to get out of dancers lately is like, you can probably speak to this as an adjudicator as well, because I sit back and when I'm adjudicating, like, I want to feel something. I don't just want to see
Yeah.
good technique
100%.
or tricks. I need to feel something deep within your heart and you need to move me. And that's
Yeah.
what this dance is about. And that's what's special about it.
Mm-hmm.
And not the awards and not the, like the perfect technique. And I think
Yeah.
it gets lost and a lot in competitive studios for sure. And that's kind of something that I'm in the current struggle of, is
Yeah.
like,
No,
yes,
I
I
get it.
respect that. And I'm not saying anything less, because you need the counts, you need the technique, you need to the precision, you need to know
Yeah.
what it feels like working in a group setting, all of that. It's 1000%.
Yeah.
But if we're sacrificing the whole true meaning of dance for those things,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard for me to watch that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's not what dance is to me, and that's not what I don't think it should be. And I think there are a lot of other people that think like it should be for the love of it because you're
Yeah,
not going
for
to
sure.
continue doing it if you don't love it. And it sounds so simple, but like it's just the base and it's the core. And if we're forgetting about that whole entire thing, it doesn't make sense to me. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at in terms of, okay, do we want to like keep with an entity that has their brand, that's grown their brand, and now I need to mold myself into that because it's respectfully, that's what I think should happen in that situation. Or should I continue to push my own thing?
Hmm.
And I think I'm trying to do both right now. And it's the struggle of finding the balance as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, going back to that point, because now I'm teaching all night, every night, but then I'm coming home and during the day, like there is not a moment where I stop and I'm like, oh, let's just go to the mall and relax.
For
Or
sure. For sure.
let's just relax. And I think that there should be a balance of that, but that's something
Yeah.
that I'm struggling
Yeah.
with because I want to finish out my commitments and I want to give my 10,000%. But I also want to give it 10,000% to myself and the brand that I want to, and keep growing that so that I can help those people in that sense. So
Yeah. Yeah.
again, it's that balance and trying to keep pushing through those hard moments where you're like, is this really worth it? Like, is it worth my um, not necessarily stress, but like tiredness, stress that comes from being exhausted.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Because it isn't an easy thing, but I think that's what makes it so special is dance isn't a normal career, but when you can put your heart and soul into it and you can commit and you can show your passion, and as a teacher, as an instructor, as an adjudicator, as a dancer, like I think that's what shows.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it will pay off. So it's just a matter of finding how to not burn out throughout that process.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean it's a thing. I mean, I stopped teaching for the first time in 13 years. I stepped away from competitive studios this
Oh,
year just because of very similar reasons. I mean, it's not against any of the particular studios that I was at all. It was just like studios have their motives is a terrible word. They have stuff that they have to do. It's a business. It
mhm.
has to operate. It has to create income. It has to pay bills, and a lot of times that doesn't align with what what the teacher or the artist is looking for. And I think I think there is a point where you have to make that decision for sure. And it's not an easy one to make at all. But yeah, I can resonate with that 100%, 100%. Yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle too because like you, I know for me sometimes I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't feel like I could do it in studio
Yeah.
environments, and so it was very much like that. Looking back is what ultimately led to my burnout teaching was that I
Mm.
wasn't giving myself the space to do what I wanted to do. But I don't know. Have a kid, it'll all change.
Yeah, I
You'll
know.
get plenty of time away from work if you have a kid.
And I was actually going to ask you about that because I've been curious. I was wondering, like, do you teach at studios, and how is that transition? I know this is you're supposed to be interviewing me, but I'm
No, it's
curious to
okay.
hear, like,
Yeah.
um, what your transition was like because I think that's
Yeah,
a struggle that I'm currently having of like,
for sure.
can I make that transition? Is it a smart moment? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just figuring out how to be, as I said, that entrepreneur and prove that this is your business
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
it works, without
Well,
that security.
yeah, 100%. Well, my transparency moment is that I have a normal, air quotes, normal job. I'm a marketing director for a small business. And so, um, when I first started it, I was terrified of people knowing that because I didn't want it to take away from like my artistry.
Mm,
And now it's the greatest thing ever because
mm,
I have the freedom to do what I want to do on my terms.
yeah.
Um, and if anything, it amplified my artistry because I was able to say like no to things. I was able to, um, I'm able to say a great example is I had an interaction the other day. A friend of mine reached out; they wanted to book me for something, and I was able to say like, I don't think this is for me. Like, I mean, I think I know what you're looking for, And I could do that. I could be that if I wanted to, but I don't. And so I think it's hard to your point, when you're in a situation where you don't have anything else, you're constantly battling that. You're constantly battling how much of your values
Mhm.
you want to diminish in order to continue. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, but again, there was a point when I just did teaching. I had a lot less stuff. I didn't have a home at the time. I didn't have a car, like I had a small car payment. I didn't have a kid. So it was a
Mhm.
much different time.
Yeah.
And then the decision to stop altogether in terms of like consistent teaching was
Mhm.
really just, I think it was just the end of the road. I think it just,
Yeah.
I mean, I think everything we decide to do eventually has an end, and that leads to another decision. And I think it was just the end of the road. I just wasn't really in it anymore. And now I get the luxury of being able to teach and do whatever I want to do, and it's
Mhm.
just a lot different. So I don't know. I think it was very selfish, my decision, to be honest. Very selfish, but it was also a reflection of like I wasn't really giving the kids much anymore. Like
Mhm.
I was giving them the bare minimum, and that was it. And I just, kind of to your point earlier, like I don't like doing that. I don't want to be the person that just shows up and gives a
Yeah.
percentage of myself. So when I did leave, when I left, I was at one studio, and it was very mutual in the best way possible. It was kind of like, this is not a good fit anymore. And I was directing at the time as well, which wasn't a great idea on my part. And so it just, yeah, it was a very natural ending, but yeah. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll abandon my normal job and just do this type of stuff. But there's also a part of me that's like, I don't know if I will.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a part of it is like being okay with like just going with the flow and like
Yeah.
if it
Yeah.
aligns with you, it does. And in this moment of your life, it might. But then I always say like never say never because I said never would I be on a cruise ship and I had
a
a
hundred
coaching career
percent
there. So you
Yeah.
just kind of have to bite your tongue and like go with the flow and be open about it.
100%. 100%.
Mhm.
As we kind of taper down here, I'm curious. I always kind of like to get, if there was one thing that people take away from this episode, one singular thing that you're maybe seeing right now a lot in dancers, or you're just really passionate about right now, what would that be?
I think I spoke to it a lot during this podcast, but it's really just to remember why we dance.
Hmm.
Simply as simple as that. Take away all of the conventions and the competitions, which are fabulous, and go back to I always tell people just close your eyes and envision your best moment of dance and how you felt. What did it what did you hear around you? How did you
Hmm.
feel in your body? Like what was that feeling that you felt in that specific moment? And you need to try and bring that moment back time and time and time again, whether you're on stage, whether you're in a class, because that's what it's about. It's about talking to or sharing your dance and your emotion with great grandma Sue in the back row because she knows nothing about dance. She's just
Hmm.
coming in to watch a performance. Okay. And if you can sell great grandma Sue on your performance and say, wow, that made me feel something, not wow, there's 10,000 pirouettes, like amazing, but like great grandma Sue's not going to care about that. She's going to care about how she felt at the end, and that feeling that you feel is going to project outwards and going to make others feel something. And I think
Yeah,
that's the message that I have been so passionate about lately because it's competition season
for sure.
and we're getting into the nitty gritty and trying to make everything perfect. Of just sometimes just throw away that perfection and just be you and know
Yeah.
what makes you special,
Yeah.
because I think we focus so much on what you need to improve and what is not going well that we forget like what do you do well? Some people don't even know. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm passionate about. I need every dancer hearing this to figure out what they are, what makes them special,
Mm.
and what makes them excited, and what that feeling is when they dance, and revisit that feeling each and every single time, because
Mm.
that's why we do this. And that is why we have this beautiful art form, to affect people and ourselves. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my message forever and always
I
will
love it.
be. But yeah, taking dance back to that place, because it truly is so special, and we need to remember that.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. Clara, thank you so much. This has been an incredible, incredible chat. Where can everybody find you? Where can they find info about Vertex? All of the above.
Yeah, so you can visit me on my Instagram page at Clara Eaton, or you can also visit us at Vertex Vibe on Instagram as well for all of our announcements, location dates, and everything. So, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you again. I really, really appreciate it. And everything will be linked below. So if you're listening to this or watching to this, check out the description, and be sure to check out Clara's content, and tune into Vertex and what's next with them. So, Clara, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.